to start out, if you can just give us your name and your just give a bit of a background about your involvement with the program.
Right. Peter Darke. I've been involved literally since day one. Firstly on the steering committee, then about 3 years ago I was appointed as the hunter coordinator, a 2-year contract. I haven't worked for the program for about 15 months, but I still sit on the stakeholder representative committee.
What's the stakeholder representative committee? I haven't heard of that.
That sits quarterly. It has about 4 or 5 people on the panel from different stakeholders. Like I'm there from Field and Game. There's someone from government departments, NRM, Tasmanian Conservation Trust, Quarantine.
Yep.
Yeah, that's plus. There's always a few Fox staff there.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you were there from the start. Can you just give us a bit of a history about how it all started? I mean, there were 2 incidents really. There was the '98 Fox, which sort of got everyone running around. I mean, there's always been incursions and everything, but around 2001, when things got started, can you give us a bit of background about that?
Was that the one here near Longford, that sighting? Was that
sighting,
2001?
That's right. It was
Yeah.
Chris Spencer, I think.
Yeah, I don't know him, but yeah. Well, I first became involved when the first sighting was a fox at the Burnie or Devonport docks. That had everyone running around for a few days. I remember at the time offering the help of Field and Game members with dogs to go in and try and find it. I remember at that time I wasn't overly thrilled by the fact that they didn't want to respond to me at all, and it seemed like they didn't want anyone outside the system to help. As time went by, that certainly changed. I believe it really fired up though when the fox was sighted near the Bass Highway on Illawarra Road. The person was reputable that sighted it, very close range, and I didn't think there was really any doubt from that point on.
Right. Yeah, there was a whole series around that time in Longford area. Have you come across any explanation as to where those foxes came from?
Yes. The minister's on record in a TV interview saying that were 3 litters brought in from the mainland by some deer hunters, I believe, that came in. That's the story. I'm fairly certain that one of the litters was kept on Illawarra Road here at Longford. The Parks and Wildlife were handling it at the time. They found out about this and they were going to pay a visit to this particular property. I believe the property owner was tipped off and the evidence was all removed. I did have a long conversation with one of the parks people that went there, a person who I trust, and I have really no doubt that there was a litter kept here at Longford.
That property owner, that was Andrew Pearson, is that right?
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know the name of
Look, I was told a lot of these things I don't bother remembering because it saves you making a mistake and saying that someone saw it or did something and you mention the wrong person's name. So I let that one go through to the keeper, but I try and keep the fact.
It's a pretty serious charge. That's one of the things I found quite baffling is the fact that there's been a lot of evidence that has come to light that no one's ever been charged with such a serious offence even.
Yeah, I've never been privy to that information that there was enough evidence to make a conviction. The only thing I did know that at that point in time, the statute of limitations was only 6 months. And by the time they got the evidence that they really wanted, I believe that statute had passed. Since then, that's been removed, of course. And I wouldn't want to be bringing any fox parts into Tasmania now, although one chap did try to bring them in recently, but he was upfront about it and declared them, and nothing was done. And I'm very pleased that was the case, because he was trying to do the right thing, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. So there was a number of sightings around that time. There was the story. There was the police investigation couldn't come up with anything, and the continued sightings around the area. What was your involvement with the actual monitoring of those sightings? And
this was well before I joined the program. So I guess through being on the steering committee, I was privy to certain information there. A lot I wasn't privy to. I have a theory, it's a very personal one and unsubstantiated, but if there's been sightings in the Campbelltown area, say, Campbelltown to Cleveland, Epping, in that area, and we had the very definite sighting, which was proven to be a sighting at Kenilworth on the Valleyfield Road near Campbelltown. So that led me to think, well, if these people at Longford knew that there was someone going to come and raid them, it would be fairly reasonable to assume that they would put them in a vehicle and take them down a quiet road like that and throw them over the fence. Now, it's a personal hunch of mine, totally unsubstantiated.
Just getting back to that property, there were photos taken of it, and the pens had been bulldozed. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, I heard that.
Yes.
You
never saw the...
I didn't ever see it, no. No, I wasn't working for them then, you see.
No.
So there's no way that I'd be involved in that.
Sure. Okay. So around this time, the task force got together and they convened and they pretty much formed a plan. They got it outside experts in. What was your opinion on how they set out initially with the plan? They started with baiting and a lot of other programs at the time.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't a big fan of it, the way things were done early on. I didn't seem to be a lot of cohesion, and people were... I remember one guy was too busy worrying about whether the staff had the right coloured socks on and this sort of rubbish. But, you know, I have to be fair to them and say this, that they had to hit the ground running, but they didn't know where to run to. This was a whole new ball game for Tasmania, and very, very difficult. And they were up against it with public opinion right from the start. I believe as time went on, that changed. But recent TV coverage and that I don't think was terribly clever. Spoke to the wrong people. And I think this is probably the current system as it is. The people that are running it are not the best people. It depends whether you've got a degree or not. Which is a thing with a lot of government jobs these days. There are people in there that are very switched on, they know foxes, they're practical bush people, and that's what you're hunting. There is no other term for it, but you're hunting these animals.
That was one of the major criticisms at the start, that there wasn't enough experts and scientific study done before they went in, and people were given jobs not so much on merit, but just on having a gun licence, and they managed to throw together a lot of people who perhaps weren't really qualified, or they weren't responsible enough to...
Yeah, there was a bit of that. There was one chap here, Tim Bloomfield, and God, I wish he was still here. He was good. Knew his stuff. There are other guys there now that are well qualified. there are two blokes in there that were brought in, and I believe sort of more hands-on with the field people, but I didn't think that they were good people for the job. They're trying hard and everything, but this is an animal, and I know very little about foxes or their behaviour as an animal. I've been out, I've seen them, done that sort of thing, talked to a lot of people, and you certainly pick up information. But these guys just had it. Well, the blokes like Tim Bloomfield and some of the guys in the program now, they've got it. They know their stuff. You've got there's Ken West down the northwest coast, and there's Craig Bester. You know, good hunters and people that they're switched on. They know what they're doing. They're the people that are not getting enough consultation. In fact, I think that the more credibility they get, some of these, the inner circle, as they're sarcastically called, seem to want to push them further away because they're taking their glory.
Yep, I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah. How did you gauge the political response at the time in regards to getting support and funding? There was a bit of a delay, I believe, at the get-go.
Yeah. Like both sides, there was a Labor government here and a Liberal government on the mainland. I know David Llewellyn was trying to get some funding. I think Kemp was the federal minister at the time, and they were each saying that nobody's phoned me and all this stupid political nonsense. This has been a thing with me right through, that people have to understand the importance of this problem, potential problem. I think we're very lucky that there hasn't been a lot of sightings. A lot of hunters have said to me, oh, I'm in the bush every week and this, that and the other thing, and I've never seen one. My comment to them is, you could go hunting deer in the bush and hunt all day and never see one, but you know there's plenty there. So, I mean, these animals are equipped with wonderful sense of smell, and you know, they live in the bush, and their is modus operandi the right word is to survive predators, and we're the predator.
Yeah. Do you think that, I mean, there's always been these incursions, there's been the ones that have come on the boat, there's been individual ones, and we've had this sort of explosion that appears to have happened, although it's never been proved. Do you believe that they're breeding? Because we've had 10 breeding seasons, more or less, since then. And we haven't found the evidence of breeding. It's a really difficult one.
Yeah. It is difficult. I'd say there's no evidence of breeding. I've never seen a fox den. Apparently it stinks. I get pretty frightened now when I look at the statistics or the information that's down the northwest coast, where, say, Burnie, there's a dog and a vixen. Well, it's pretty scary stuff. And as I said, these animals have got wonderful sense of smell, something like 500,000 times better than a human being. So, you know, if they got upwind or downwind of each other, you know, it could be game on. Look, I don't know if it's wishful thinking or not, but I just wonder if the fox is actually making any headway. Let's hope they're not. Because if, as I say to people, if you start seeing foxes, game over. Pack up, go home. You haven't got a hope in hell.
Well, that gets to, I mean, to the physical evidence side of things. If you look at a map of the physical evidence of where foxes are, you could pretty much say that already. If they are that widely dispersed.
Yeah, Look, there's so many confusing bits of evidence. The stuff on Bruny Island. Now, is this another hoax, or is it Ridgy Didge? How does a fox get onto Bruny? There's only one way that I know it, well, two ways. Someone takes it over there, or it jumps ship on the ferry. Probably the former if it actually got there. If there's only one...
There's also a third way, which is if a scat was found that was contaminated in a lab and then found to be fox scat, which is because it was a fox scat that was found over there.
Yeah. And a supposed sighting or something.
Yeah, the sighting wasn't terribly good.
It wasn't, right. Yeah. Yeah, I do find some of those things confusing. And just off the record, there's some theories that I have, or scenarios perhaps, that I wouldn't want to talk about on this, because if there are three dickheads out there that brought them in from the start, and that's putting it bluntly, there's got to be more. Now, would some clown bring a scat in just to consume time of the program? Very irresponsible.
Yep. Well, I wouldn't be at all surprised, to be honest.
No.
From what I've seen. I mean, you mentioned hoaxes, and there have been a number, and one of the issues I find I have a lot of trouble with is the fact that the task force hasn't identified the hoaxes and separated them from the hard evidence and made examples of the people. There's been no prosecutions. I've had various explanations why that is. Do you think that's a bit of a problem for as far as hoaxes? What can be done?
In my 2 years there, I think I was aware of one or two. You know, once they establish as a hoax, well, we have more important things to do, so that just gets swept aside.
But it gets into the public consciousness when there has been a hoax committed, because they see one and then they start questioning others.
Yeah, I didn't see it as a big issue. I'm certainly not going to say it didn't happen, but I didn't see it as a big issue. When I was there, we were concentrating on the real things. I'm big in favour of baiting. I bring it up at SRC each time, and they try and kick me out of the room about ferritox. Quite rightly, it's been said that it's not legal in Tasmania.
Sorry, what's ferritox?
Ferritox is a poison that they use in New Zealand. It's a cyanide-based thing, quick as a flash. Yeah. The Conservation Trust said, oh, it takes 5 minutes or 20 minutes at least to kill an animal. Well, the animal's unconscious in about 5 minutes. New Zealand experience is as wallaby heaped up round the bait station. They don't even move anywhere. A big problem we have with foxes and taking 1080, assuming some foxes have taken the 1080 bait, the only animal, a canine that I know, that will come back home if they're poisoned is a dog. The rest of them go to ground. It's natural for an animal to do that. So you don't get the evidence. And this is the terribly frustrating thing about it. But 1080, and the way it's administered, it's very safe against other animals. Well, devils are not about. It's placed at a sufficient distance, each bait, so devils can't, they've got to really pig out and get something like 15 baits. Yeah, it's...
The only thing with dogs and possibly pigeons, I think.
Yeah, well, that's right. No.
And what about the problem with certain properties being missed? Because I mean, I think it's 1 in 9 or so properties, when they are baiting, they get refused permission. I mean, you look at the size of some of the land, that's a bit of a huge problem, isn't it?
I wouldn't say it's a huge problem. It's a pity that we couldn't go onto all properties, or I keep saying we still. It's a pity the program wasn't given complete access, but you can't convince everybody. I know people that wouldn't let them bait on their property because they had valuable dogs or really treasured pets. I know how I feel with my dog. If I go near a property that's got it on, I'm paranoid. That and snakes worries me with my dog. So there are those sort of legitimate reasons. Some, I can think of one farmer who was just stubborn. He admitted they were here, basically, but he wouldn't let anybody on. I need to do certain things. Pretty silly. You'll have to forgive me if I go around in circles a bit at times, but I guess you'll edit it and grab.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as the baiting goes, that's set in place till 2014, I believe, on that program. Eradication is a 3-year job. That's sort of been said from the start. They've worked in 3-year pockets.
Yeah.
And they say as soon as we stop finding evidence, that's when we pack up and we'll do containment. Do you see it going on indefinitely, given the 3-year period? I mean,
Has to.
At the very start, there was a bit of a delay in getting things going.
Oh yeah, and you've got to be fair about this. As I said, they had to hit the ground running and they didn't know where to run to. There was a huge learning curve. But I can quote a farmer out at Blackwood Creek one day. I was out there was a gathering, and this guy said to me, I don't care if it costs $100 million, get rid of them. And there's a lot of farmers would agree with that, a huge number. I quote a situation, I can't remember exactly the years, but on Anglesey Island near Wales was a small island, I think about the size of Phillip Island. They let between 3 and 10 foxes go. 20 years later, they're shooting about 600 a year, and they've got no hope of controlling it.
So, question why we've got that problem here.
Yeah. I don't know. There's so much confusing stuff here. Like, yeah, no, but that's fair enough. Like, a fox has got a lifespan of about 5 years. We'd say we've had them here for 10. We see the situation where I think there's 9 or 10 foxes from Wesley Vale through to Wynyard or somewhere. We've got mixed sexes. Luckily, only a couple of the odd sex, whatever that is, dogs or vixens, I'm not sure. One way you look at it is very scary, and then the saving grace is that we're not seeing foxes. They have been brought here in the past. I believe there were 2 old ladies over at Evandale that used to look after them for the hunts.
Yep, I've heard about this. Yeah.
I think that farmers would be intelligent enough if they were going to do that to bring same-sex animals in. And there's been a couple of stories like that, and they've found the foxes anyway. And they've never survived, but I guess they weren't brought in in great numbers, and if they were same-sex animals, well, there's not a problem, really. Not with just a few, but if we get too many, Alan Johnson said on the telly the other night that, there won't be any bettongs and there won't be any rabbits. Well, thank God for that. But possums, they'll just kill a lot. You're talking about an excellent hunter.
Oh, yeah.
Up in the top.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. An environmental disaster.
Yep. I'll keep going where it was going with this is where is the end point though? Because at the moment, 2006 was the last, the carcass on Glenesk Road. Since then, there's been scats found, but there's a lot of question marks over the process of the DNA confirmation of those. When does it go from eradication to containment or monitoring? Because I'd suggest that the public would be a lot more comfortable at the moment if we had money going as an insurance sort of monitoring rather than eradicating because of the lack of...
Yeah, well, there's a New Zealand group came over 2 years ago or so. They said we had a hope of eradication. Now, I don't want to put a time on that, but if those people are as knowledgeable as apparently they were, maybe they could put a time on that.
They don't have foxes over there, which was...
That's true. Look, I can't answer the question. I don't know.
No one does.
How long's a bit of string on that? Yeah. It'd be nice to say, right, well, next year we can stop and we can try and control this. But through my relationship with some of these people in the program that I considered to be very good people, they used to confide in me and tell me things, which I was allowed to know anyway, but about some sightings, and in particular at Wesley Vale. I heard of a couple of other sightings that I was prepared to put a lot of faith in. Some of the inner circle try and get technical about it, and they're not prepared to accept it. I remember we went to New South Wales for a 5-day course. Brilliant. A very good thing to do. When we came back, I said to the manager, beware of the 5-day experts. These were those people that had no background in hunting or bush or anything like that. And sure enough, we got the 5-day experts. And some of them can look you in the eye and just give you some bureaucratic drivel.
There was a lot of controversy around 2002, 2003 when things were getting going. I think it was Peter Williams who was running things at the time.
The Black Rat.
Yeah, can you tell me anything about what the issues were at that point?
I can't remember the issues specifically, but I think there was a lot of running around in circles, trying to make the public happy, I guess, more particularly. As I said, I sat on the steering committee, and this is a problem with government agencies, and I don't care what agency it is, they have steering committees or consultative committees or something like that. It's just so that they can say, we have consulted with the public. And I know when, in that first period, during the early part of the task force, when it was known as that, I mean, we'd walk out the door and I'm sure they'd forget everything we said. You know, you just knew that.
Yeah, a few people like Tim Longford were particularly critical at that point.
Yeah.
What they were saying was just not getting through.
No, well, Tim was just fantastic. I mean, he's had so much experience on Phillip Island, and I know I went to, in the early days, and the manager wanted me to actually go out and see foxes, which was a good thing to do. And we went down to Werribee, and he showed me lots of things, you know, calling them, and the other chap that were with, they knew their stuff. You know, full bottle on it, as they say.
Yeah. Now, getting back to what happened here in 2001, there's a lot of conjecture about the motivation behind bringing foxes in, and a lot of it centres around the development of the game management plans, which apparently got a lot of people offside, and there was a lot of argy-bargy among the hunting fraternity about that. You familiar with it at all, with what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I'd never heard the one about the game management plans, and I've always felt that hunters have been fairly supportive of that. I remember one comment. There was one of the task force people fronted one of the suspects, if I can call them that, and was told, that'll teach you so-and-sos to take our guns off us. Pretty stupid reason. Another equally stupid reason was that there was a bet, and this is the most likely one to me, there was a bet. These three people brought foxes in, and the first one to shoot one won the bet. Yeah, brain dead. Totally brain dead.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, right.
Did you ask me something else in that?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's something that yeah, I mean, we're talking about the motivations to bring foxes here. And I mean, what I've heard through various people, and it's all speculation, is that a lot of fairly extreme people in the hunting fraternity were really pissed off with the government about the game management plans. They couldn't go onto properties anymore where they wanted to shoot, and it was sort of like a revenge thing, maybe.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Against David Llewellyn, against certain people in the parks, or in the rain.
There's still a fair amount of animosity from some people towards parks and wildlife, and it goes back to when it was called the Fauna Board. You still hear the term, the Fauna Board. When you're talking about hunters that think like this, you're talking about a minority. Really, like any facet of life. It's like the bloke that goes out and writes himself off at the pub every night and drives home. There's 5% of the population is stupid enough to do that, and you'll never stop them. And the same, and I can understand their animosity to a fair degree. I don't share it, but I can still understand that they're, I believe that some of the staff in those areas were prone to jumping a fence with a firearm occasionally. And you hear lots of stories like that.
I mean, it has been said to me that some of the people in the prospect office were a bit too close to some of the suspects in this incident, or at the time of this incident, which hampered the investigation.
Yeah, I don't know that. No, I don't know.
Do you think it's in the public interest to know what happened?
How they came here?
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Because, I mean, people don't know.
No. Llewellyn has said this publicly on a... I can't think of the name of the program. I thought it was State Line. No, it wasn't. But no, he has said it publicly that 3 litters were brought in.
It was on the front page of the newspaper. It was everywhere.
Yeah, right. I can't remember that bit.
It was a huge story at the time. It ran for ages. But since the police investigation came to nothing, and since the police files say they couldn't find any evidence, and they've been freely available for a while, people don't believe it. People think the whole thing was made up.
No.
Just because there were no charges laid and they couldn't find evidence.
No. Not true. No. I have absolutely no doubt that there are foxes in Tasmania, and foxes have been brought to Tasmania in recent times, not back these old days that I was talking about. Yeah, and the only question is the number.
But that sort of data would be so useful, and the fact that we don't have that, and that no charges have been laid, and the
Yes.
general public don't know what happened. It's a major
Yeah,
problem.
it is. Yeah, it's the public acceptance. I found when I was working for the program, and I'm not saying this because it was my job, but I felt we made some ground by getting some public acceptance. I think my appointment as a hunter, and someone that's known as a hunter, I was going in to talk to hunting groups and farming groups as one of them. You know, a tactical decision I made, I guess you could call it, when I first joined them. I said, you're mad to give me a uniform, because you go in there with that badge on, the back comes up.
Yeah.
So I went there, I spoke to them as a hunter, and they knew I was a hunter. And I think it had an effect. I had some situations. I remember one, a fly fishing club, you know, and I came out of there, you know, really pumped up, because I knew that those people accepted what I said. You just had that feeling, you know, that, and the more credibility you get, the better it works, and yeah, it was a rewarding job.
Yep. When you left, was it on good terms?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Definitely.
Good. And
I know a lot of them still want me back.
yeah. How do you, I mean, I can't actually recall if I've asked this yet, about how you consider the way things are operating at the moment. Whether you're impressed with it, whether you have any problems with it.
As I said earlier, there's a group in there that's called the Inner Sanctum, and government departments have that. It's par for the course. I repeat that, you know, they have to understand that they are hunting an animal. There are no pretty words. That's exactly what's happening. So you use people that know. You know, the old hunter in his flannelette shirt and so forth is going to be a lot better value than some bureaucrat. I know you've got to do your homework, administration and all that sort of thing, but don't make it top heavy. And talk to the people.
Amount of money going in, do you think it could be better spent?
Yep.
In what way?
Oh, clean out a few. I'd like to have a 3-month contract there.
Yeah.
With a free hand.
Something I read the other day, which I found interesting because it hadn't been put to me before, was if you rebadged the whole program and said this was, instead of an eradication program, but this was a fox-free insurance program, say you're putting money in to ensure we don't have foxes take off, rather than saying we're eradicating the foxes here. Do you think on a PR level that would work better?
Oh,
I mean, what the thing
yeah.
is, what I'm getting at is the man in the street. If you say, oh yeah, do you reckon it's worth $5 million a year for the government to prevent foxes getting here? And they'd all say, sure, definitely. But if you say we're spending $5 million to eradicate foxes, but we can't really show you much hard evidence that it's not going to stand up.
yeah, well, put that way, not many people would support that. You did say something there that triggered a thought that I've had, and I know that I've said this before about feral cats, and the fox program wasn't particularly happy about my comment. Well, I'm not overly fussed about that, and I'll make the same comment any day of the week, that if you had perhaps a low key, you can't take your eye off the ball. We're here to get rid of foxes, but in the process, to tip over some feral cats, that'll get you some brownie points out there. And I did say, within the first 2 months of this, there was a meeting at Henty House in Launceston. There were half a dozen of us there, including the minister, and he was the Minister for Police at the time. I said, David, you have the wherewithal to permit the use of silencers on 22. So you guys out there in the field, give them a 22 with a silencer or a noise suppressor or whatever you want to call it, and there's a cat there, and you can tip him over. I went with one of the guys after the Kenilworth fox. The next night or 2 nights later, we went down and did some extensive spotlighting using a whistle, and a fox whistle is brilliant to call up feral cats. This cat came tearing up to us and sat out there. We could have got rid of it. And remember, these animals do kill an enormous amount of native wildlife, albeit small ones. And all we had was a centre-fire rifle. You couldn't find. What if the fox had just been over a bank? Straight away he'd be gun shy. So you couldn't do anything about it. But if it went cat gone, maybe the next night fox gone.
Yeah, that happened in the early, at the very start. There was a lot of cats were culled just so that they weren't disturbed, because there was a lot of sightings and they didn't want people to get confused.
Yeah.
They went out and culled quite a few cats. I mean, it makes sense, really, doesn't it?
Because it does.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, they have this pest animal control in another. Yeah. Yeah, you got foxes, rabbits, and cats. Just destructive to the environment. No good. The only one that's half good is a rabbit because you can eat it.
Pretty much covered just about everything I really wanted to. Is there anyone in particular that, as far as critics go, that you'd like to respond to if you got a chance, like people who have criticised the program and perhaps give you reasons for, yeah.
Yeah, well, you know who they are.
Yeah, I know, but I mean to voice, how you feel about the critics and the fact that...
Oh, I see. I'm sorry, yeah, I understand your question. Yeah, there are 2 or 3 critics out there, 3 that I can think of quickly, who I believe are not acting for the right motives. I can't see what their point is. I believe they are destructive to the program. You know, they're better just to shut up. I don't think they're in full control of the facts, even though they say they are. But they're not helping from a PR point of view.
From that point of view, there's a lot of money being spent, and they would feel that as a taxpayer they deserve to be able to have their grievances for. I mean, it's a free country, you can say what you like. But the evidence should stack up enough so that, and it should be open enough and transparent enough that it can be defended.
Yeah, well, in my time with it, I have seen enough evidence to make me very, very, very confident that there are foxes here. Even there's quite a bit of talk one Ag Fest. Someone opened up a van and a fox jumped out. The people that I heard say it would make me never dismiss it. And you get a situation like at Quercus Park when vans are being unloaded, you know, people are not short on the ground. And there was more than one person involved in that. So lots of things like that sort of didn't go any further.
What was that, sorry? I missed that.
Oh, someone opened up their van from the mainland,
right,
and a fox jumped out.
Where was that?
At Agfest.
Oh, at Agfest, right, yes. So Agfest, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's not disputable by anyone, I don't think, that one.
Mm.
Yeah. But it goes to belief versus knowledge, which is all about scientific, irrefutable proof. You can believe something. So no, I know people on the ground have a better understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, scientific knowledge is all well and good, and it's necessary, and this science has been very helpful to the program with DNA work, etc., with scats, etc. But I keep getting back to this point: you're hunting an animal, and this is where you want to put troops on the ground that know how to hunt.
Yep.
They know animal behaviour. I know. I think I learned a fair amount about foxes over that period while I didn't have a lot of contact with them, but my hunting experience allows you to understand what someone is telling you. You know, it's a bit like saying the techniques in hunting a deer and the techniques of hunting a fox. There's a lot of similarities there. So, yeah, the basic principles.
Yep. Okay. I think I've got how we're going for yeah. Is there anything else on that that really comes to mind?
I think you've pretty much tapped my knowledge to its limit.
As far as I'll go back to the physical evidence. The physical, the road kills, 3 of the 4 said to have been moved before they were found. Do you have any idea why this would be? I mean, it's been...
There was one theory put up with the Canara fox that a farmer nearby found it dead and didn't want any controversy, and so he moved it and put it there. Well, nothing's impossible, but I doubt it. I know the person who found it. Yeah, people said about that one that they'd put it in a hessian bag and run over it and put it there. Now, you get crazy thoughts like that. Now, I remember in that case, Nick Mooney got a vacuum cleaner, bought a new one or had one with a clean bag or something, and vacuumed the pelt of this animal. And all he got was like southeast pine pollen was one thing in it. Now that's endemic to that area. The gut contents were rabbit and stuff that it could have got in the mainland. There's no argument there, it could have been, but certainly could have happened here. The one at Symonds Plains had, what was it called, a long-tailed mouse or something, endemic to Tasmania in there.
That area, but yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why people, Eric might have posted it somewhere else.
You could have, I didn't know it was not endemic to that area. See, that, I think, and I'm not, don't quote me on this, but I have a feeling that a bloke that did an examination on that animal probably shouldn't have done it. He didn't have the qualifications.
I've heard that plenty of times.
Yeah. But I have no proof of that.
If we just go back to, we did discuss it earlier, the sighting of a fox as Bosworth's story, as he claims it, and it hasn't changed because I spoke to him, well, virtually hasn't changed. That at 60 yards, he shot at a pair of eyes, not knowing what it was, and didn't know whether he hit it or not. How does that sound to you as a hunter?
It's not good hunter ethic. My hunter ethic is basically if you're going to shoot it, you eat it. I know that doesn't apply to everything. I mean, we go out and we have to cull possums. No one's going to eat a possum, except the Chinese perhaps. But yeah, I have some problems with that. I mean, it may have been in long grass or something, to be fair about it, but you really...
What about shooting at something not knowing what it is?
That's the thing that I'm saying, that unless you can identify it, you really shouldn't shoot it. And at 60 yards, well, it's not a long way away.
Through a 4x scope of the spot.
Yeah, exactly. You've got a scope to draw it up and see, in effect, it's probably going to be about 15 yards away. Yeah, I don't think that was overly clever.
Another thing that Eric said to me is he's never shot a fox before. Anyway, do you know him personally, and do you know if that's...
Yeah, well, where would he shoot a fox before?
Well, all the newspapers were full of the fact that he used to go shooting them on the mainland.
Oh, we could well have done.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
No, I wouldn't dispute.
It was just something, a strange thing that came up. He said, I've never been to the mainland and shot foxes, but the newspapers were...
Oh, well, that's...
I know.
Yeah, no, that's not for me to comment on, because, you know, I don't know the facts there. Yeah, I wouldn't know. There's a lot of guys go over there and shoot foxes. Yeah. Even blokes from some of the fellas in the fox program have a week's holiday shooting foxes.
Yeah, they like shooting other things too. Well, I don't think they're allowed to anymore. They were allowed to back then.
Oh,
They got into some trouble early on.
yeah, I know. I heard some... I was told that it probably wasn't half as bad as it was supposed to be. I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't go there.
Fair enough. Oh, well, thanks for your time.
It's all right. It's been quite a pleasure.